Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Well, the news is still coming out. We're still getting more original footage from the TBI about the search. You can see these images of a dog and a searcher going. It's unclear where this footage is taken, but one wonders how close it is to Ben Hill Road and to the Wells property, Chalet Wells. What is interesting is it's been about 5 hours since the TBI first put up the story, put up news of their search, and everyone seems to be talking about the search for some except, well, for Don and Candus. If you go onto the FindSummerWells.com website, the last thing that they said was, "Thank you for those helping with our house." And in this episode, we're going to talk about the penultimate post, walking out from the interview, where they provide an explanation for that. And one does wonder why they are not celebrating or seemingly interested in the search for Summer. Why is it taking so long for them to address it? What do you guys think? Do you guys think that Don and Candus are glad that the authorities are back on their doorstep searching for Summer Wells? Before we get to today's episode, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So it's interesting that obviously the Dr. Phil interview wasn't a good look for Candus, and Candus obviously realized this, and Don did as well. And so about 2 weeks afterwards, they decided to do damage control. And so Candus explains why she walked out of the Dr. Phil interview, kind of in a huff, right? As I say, it wasn't a good look when Candus, during an interview with the behavior panel, as part of the Dr. Phil show, shut down the interview, demiked, got up and walked out, all the while blubbering, "I want to go home." Candus herself seems to realize this, that it wasn't a good look, which is why she's penned a statement and recently posted it on the Find Summer Wells website. Somebody did argue with me saying, actually, no, she didn't write it. The point is that it was a statement authorized by her. It's a statement that is in her name. It's a statement that is about her. So if you don't like me saying that she authored the statement, well, it's a statement about her that is basically signed off by her. So I hope that is clear. Now, you may think the TCRS response to Candus' statement is insensitive or unsympathetic, but that really depends on whether the Wells folks have been telling the truth. I don't know whether you can be sensitive or sympathetic to someone who's not telling the truth under these sort of circumstances, right? I think when the truthfulness, the sincerity of someone is to some extent in question, I think one needs to be not sympathetic or sentimental. One's got to look at the objective facts and say, does this make sense, right? And so I think the same applies to Candus's excuse for walking out. The question is this believable? Is this excuse, does it sort of stand up to the cold light of day, right? And so this was her explanation. And as I said, it was posted online, and it's a kind of a weird format where it's posted in a sort of post, but then when you click on it, it takes you away from the FindSummerWells.com website to a video, and the statement actually appears in a video. And what is quite interesting about the walking out from the interview post on their website is it's got something like 500 impressions, which really isn't a lot, but only 10 likes. That's a very low level of likes for the amount of people looking at it. And it suggests that people possibly don't agree with whatever explanation is given. Do you think that's a fair assessment? In any event, the statement reads that she said there were many reasons that she got up, and bear in mind this is written in the first person, that I got up. So again, if you're arguing that she didn't write it, it's written in the first person. So it was possibly dictated to some extent by Candus, and then someone sort of wrote it down and transcribed what she was saying. In any event, she said, as reported by others, we had been through a very emotional time. And anyway, to cut to the chase, she said that there was a sighting of Summer in Tennessee, or in a southern state south of Tennessee, so it's actually not even in Tennessee. Police were called to the location. It's interesting that she doesn't give a really specific area. So if you wanted to check this information, well, where is it? Can't you at least give the state? Then an unnamed witness said that the child looked like Summer, and then she says the police were being restrained from entering the building. All of it very vague information. And not a lot of information either. And then she says they were prepared to leave California, I guess where they were filming this interview, and that their emotions are bouncing in many directions. And then she speaks about not being able to, or not being allowed to, talk about the behind the scenes work on Dr. Phil according to their contract. And but she says that the event with the little girl was separate. Now I've actually heard another channel saying this makes total sense, that she can completely understand that Candus would be emotional under these circumstances. I'm not sure I agree. I wonder what you guys think. By the way, if comments are disabled, which they invariably are with these Summer Wells videos, I do not disable them. Then you can head to @CrimeRocket on Twitter and discuss what we're talking about, or you can discuss it on Patreon go to www.patreon, that's patreon.com/TCRS, and you can join the discussion there. Interestingly, the Wells couple are contractually prevented from talking about the show, the whole show, and anything but the show, yet they seem to have found a way around that. So they seem to be insisting on saying what they want to say. Candus broke down, she says, because there was a sighting about Summer on the same day, and that's where her head was. Then when the sighting turned out not to be Summer, it was like losing her all over again, and a headline actually used those words. I think there are at least two reasons why this story doesn't pass the smell test. The first is that Candus was free to talk about whatever she wanted to talk about, and she was quite sort of clipped in her responses both to Dr. Phil and to the behavior panel when she was talking. She didn't really seem to have much to say. So if the sighting was such a big deal on that day, why didn't she mention it once? Or Don, why didn't he mention it during any of the interviews? When Dr. Phil asked the open question, do you know what happened? Candus answered with a clipped response, no, I don't. But more particularly, when Candus shut down the interview, she could easily have said she was feeling emotional and said why. She could have given a reason, mentioned the sighting, and I think people would have understood if she'd mentioned it there and then. And so why didn't she mention it there and then? Why didn't Don mention it there and then? And they could have then also resumed once those emotions had passed, which is what tends to happen with emotions. They rise and then they pass and you feel better and you can carry on. You would also think if Candus was serious about finding Summer, if she genuinely wanted to do all she could do as Summer's mother, she would have used every second's publicity on national television to plead her case. In a genuine scenario like this, going on Dr. Phil is like gold. You're getting massive, widespread publicity, so why not use it? Why not use this opportunity rather than to plead to be allowed not to participate, right? The other thing is, when she first decided to pull the plug, she appeared kind of unemotional. So if you go back to it, when she first decides to stop, she actually doesn't look very emotional. And she said, I can't do this. There's nothing more to remember.
I'm not going all the way back. I can't do this.
So listen, they're trying to help. They're trying to help.
It's not helping me.
I know, but they might.
There's nothing more to remember.
So that clip was obviously from Dr. Phil, and I will put a link to that in the description. And she says, there's nothing more to remember. And that is when she appeared emotional. The context of the questions were about Candus's movements on the day that Summer disappeared and issues of time. That's actually what they were talking about when Candus said, I'm not going to do this and there's nothing more to remember. Did Candus stop the interview because she was afraid she was going to be caught out on camera? ? Or was she genuinely upset about the sighting? it's just odd that she got upset given the questions that were being asked at the time, wouldn't you say? The second reason Candus's excuse doesn't pass the smell test, in my opinion, is you can imagine there being many sightings in 5 to 6 months, and I highly doubt whether Candus breaks down and wants to go home each time there is one. When Kate McCann was asked if they went on an emotional roller coaster every time there was a sighting, she said they didn't. Let's listen to that.
Through the emotional experience you go through from the moment that someone says, I'm definite that I've seen Madeleine, to when it's discounted?
I mean, the main thing for us is knowing if the sighting is credible or not, really. To be honest, we don't go through that emotional roller coaster with regards to the sightings.
And that was an interview from Sky News from 10th August 2007. And I'll obviously put a link to that in the description. What's quite interesting there is Gerry McCann, who's sitting next to Kate, looks faintly amused when this is mentioned. It's almost like he's stifling a smile. Perhaps I'm misreading it. But it certainly doesn't seem like they're getting emotional even talking about the subject. If there is any knowledge of what really happened to Summer, I'm talking about if there's some knowledge by the parents of what really happened to Summer, you'd expect sightings to hardly be a blip on their radars, right? Something else that's curious about Candus's explanation is there's absolutely no reference to the cornbread mafia in terms of this explanation that they've provided for why she walked out on the interview. Isn't this what we were led to believe triggered her, and yet it's not even brought up to say, to counter that it wasn't? Something else that wasn't brought up is, I think Don said on Dr. Phil, and I could be wrong, but didn't Don say she felt like she was being interrogated? And I mean, she was actually being interrogated at that point. So why is that not mentioned in the explanation that she walked out of the interview? So if the Wells went on Dr. Phil for the purpose of clearing themselves, they achieved the opposite, didn't they? I mean, look where we are right now. Back on the same sort of area, the same stretch of forest, back searching the foothills and the area in Beach Creek, the Beach Creek community area, right? 2 weeks after they won Dr. Phil. There are 12 agencies actually involved in the search. So it's not a small little effort, it's a huge effort. And, you know, after them going on Dr. Phil, which seemed like it was a PR opportunity for them, now they seem to be doing PR damage control on their website afterwards. Perhaps it changed a few hearts and minds here and there, but questions remain. And they seem to be questions only Summer's mother can answer. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.
Nobody deceives like an addict.